Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to give you a rundown on styling block elements, particularly the margins and paddings of those block elements. So I do have a blank page already set up. However, let me jump over to the markup, and I'm going to comment out the reset rule, and I'm also going to comment out some other styling on there. And you'll see the impact of that as everything is pretty blanked out. It doesn't have any native styling coming in. So let's go ahead and take care of some stuff. Now, in order to style something, I have to have something on my page. And it can be any block element. And there's lots of block elements. Of course, div is a generic block element. There we go. That's a block element. But header is also a block element. Footer is a block element. P for paragraph is a block element. There are a lot of block elements that we could use. Fortunately, working with any of these is the same. Now, to be very specific, I'm going to go to this generic block element, this generic div that I've created, and I'm going to give it a class equal to B1. Okay. So now I can go up to my styling here, dot B1, and start to visualize it a bit. Now, to make it easy to see, I'm going to put a border on there that's 4 pixels, solid and medium red. So now when I go to my page, we can see where that block is, that div block is with that border. Let's do a few more things. I'm going to give it a width of 80% and a height of 400 pixels. Now we can really see where that block is. Now, in order to appreciate the padding, which is space inside of the border, it's going to help if that block has some content. In between the opening and closing div tags, I'll just put in some lorem ipsum text so that we have some text filler in there. Okay, now I can visualize that text. To make that text really big, I'll go back to my styling, font size, and we'll make this something like 18 points. Nice big font size. Great. Now I can see the text in there. Let's play with padding first. Now, padding is going to be the amount of space in between the text and the border. So if I were to go to this rule for my B1 div and put in something big like padding of 100 pixels, there should be a lot of space in between the text and the border. And sure enough, that padding of 100 pixels is putting 100 pixels of padding on all 4 sides of this div. Now, of course, you can't really visualize it down here at the bottom, but you can certainly see it along the left, the top, and the right. There's a big padding in there. Remember, padding is space between the content of the block and the border of the block, inside the border. Now, what if I also put in something like margin of 100 pixels? Now, with a margin of 100 pixels, that's going to put space on the outside of the border. So if I head back over here now, there's more space on the left, top, right, and bottom of this block. It's separated itself from other areas. Margin on the outside, padding on the inside. If this margin was really big, 300 pixels, it's exaggerated. Now there's even more padding over there. Now there's even more margin. In fact, it's so big it's getting pushed off of my screen. So I'll dial that back to 100 pixels. And so we can see it like this. Now I'll also change this width. What if I adjusted this width so it was only 60% of my browser window? So now it's a little bit smaller. We can do some pretty interesting things with margin, by the way. So right now I have a 100 pixel margin on this block element. If I put automatic margins on the left and the right, it'll horizontally center that block element. So right now I have 100 pixels on all sides. If I did something like margin left auto and margin right auto, it's going to center that block element. I got rid of my top and bottom margins. I could have done this. Could just use margin, and then I can have 100 pixels for the top, auto for the right, 100 pixels for the bottom, auto for the left, top, right, bottom, left margins. And that gives me the 100 on the top and the bottom, and the auto on the left and the right. But even better, I can write just 2 values here. 100 pixels for the top and bottom, auto for the left and right, and that's going to give me the same look. I can do the same thing with padding, by the way. I could have something like 50 pixels of padding on the top and bottom, and then 200 pixels of padding on the left and the right. And now I've got smaller padding top and bottom, can't see the bottom too well, and bigger padding on the left and the right. So margin and padding are both pretty useful. If you have two values for either of those properties, it's going to be the top and the bottom, and then the left and the right. Or you can use 4 values, and it's top, right, bottom, left. I think I'm doing that so it looks well on camera. And remember, we can appreciate what margin and padding are doing because we can visualize the border. A lot of elements on web pages don't have a visible border. So if my border was 0 pixels, margin and padding are still being used, but you can't really tell at a glance. So that's why sometimes margin can be the solution for your design, padding can be the solution for your design, or maybe you need a combination of margin and padding. So definitely start applying margin and padding and understand that margin is outside of the border and padding is inside of the border. Thanks for hanging out with me.